In this blank rebounded book, I've sketched a few of the animals that Arthur Morgan draws after he studies them. To avoid tracing, I've made a point to draw these sketches from sight, as any true artist should. And if I may, I'd say these drawings turned out pretty decent and accurate to the game, despite some deviations here and there. I'm nowhere near the level of draftsman that Arthur is depicted to have, but that's not going to stop me. For over 20 years I've been drawing, and each sketch is another step in the long journey of mastering the pencil. I've even sketched from screenshots in photo mode. It's honestly one of the best ways to find unique references for animal poses, and all sorts of other references. Red Dead 2 is ripe with inspiration, not the least of which is Arthur himself. His strength and conviction often overshadow the other qualities that make him a great character. His reflections and introspections. I hope to highlight these qualities by filling out this book, all for the purpose of one day reproducing Arthur Morgan's complete journal by hand. How hard could that be? Let's find out together. For this week in Drawing Like Arthur Morgan, I've chosen to sketch the two amphibians in the game, the western toad and the American bullfrog. I will also be adding a point of interest on the right to match the journal I made in my own playthrough. Since part 1, I figured you guys would actually want to see the drawings unfold instead of just being shown a sketch with me saying, "Trust me, bro," so here I am. Now, I have never filmed myself drawing before, but seeing it sped up like this is such a satisfying display, it makes me look like one of those Instagram artists that can freehand masterpieces like they're nothing. I did have the frogs reference close to me while I made this, so don't worry, I'm not that talented. Just enough. For the page on the right, I wanted to copy a point of interest east of the swamp, this tiny church where Arthur will write a note saying, "A very small church for a very small congregation." Because the creatures on the left can be found in the same swamp, I found it quite fitting, as if the frogs themselves are the ones worshipping the Lord. What fauna, flora, or other fun things should I add next? Let me know in the comments below. For the next spread of this journal, I'm adding what is potentially Arthur Morgan's favorite animal to draw.
Go check the horses are ready.
The first horse shall be the Dutch Warmblood. This breed is a standard workhorse, but a good one. It's the breed from the Valentine stables that you couldn't afford when you went hunting with Hosea.
How much did you pay for that thing?
I made the reference images a bit further away so they were harder to see and compare my drawings with, but I love the final result of this first one. The more detailed and complex images are just more fun to draw, whereas the simpler, smaller drawings require higher precision and patience to match the original. Case in point, the Appaloosa. This is the spotted horse you get when you save Tilly from her old gang, and while it turned out okay, there are a couple of things I can do better next time. For one, the scale started out a bit too large, and that means parts of the shadow got cut off, but most notably off-putting are the front legs, which seem a tad too long to me. But how do you think I did? Let me know in the comments, and don't hesitate to name the next Arthur sketch that I should add to the journal. Time to return to the Red Dead sketching with one of the most difficult...
Do the duck.
Alright, I'll do the duck. But what makes the mallard so simple is exactly what makes it so difficult. As you can see, these lines are not aligned, so I just decided to make another one that I was feeling pretty good about until I overemphasized the bump on its back. So I made another one, and while the third duck is the one with fewer discrepancies from the source, it's still such a basic drawing that even this last one feels off for some reason. Fortunately, there's more than one duck in the game. Arthur's sketch of the Peking duck is dutifully more detailed than the mallard duck. It's certainly more enjoyable to draw. However, I learned again a valuable lesson when making art. It's not about making the shapes, but the spaces too. Like how I could have aligned better the duck's head with this dark spot below. By establishing the distance, we can establish the relationship, an essential act in making art and making friends. Hopefully, I've inspired you to do both, and let me know what you'd like to see me draw next. Right, time for another sketch.
Do the great legendary crocodile.
First of all, it's a gator, and I only have so much room.
Do a dog.
Okay, there we go. I'll do two, the first of which is the Labrador Retriever. This dog is quite common in the region, often seen accompanied with a hunter. Rufus, the dog of the Marstons, is of the same breed.
All right, Rufus.
Looks like I may have made the good boy's face a bit target-shaped, you know? He also seems a bit taller and chunkier, but I don't think Arthur would mind.
You're all right, boy.
Next up is the Catahoula Cur, and it occurred to me that Cain, the dog that wanders into camp in Chapter 3, is of the same breed. Most likely, Cain is the dog that will trigger the drawing of this sketch, so it's nice to imagine that I'm specifically drawing him. However, the face looked a bit sheepish, so I committed a crime. One of the tricks of drawing like Arthur is to never use an eraser. Thankfully, though, this is all just for practice for one day when I completely and faithfully recreate Arthur Morgan's journal. I'll finish off this spread with two more dogs in part 6, then maybe I'll wrestle that gator. See you then. In the last episode of Drawing Like Arthur Morgan, I completed one page with 2 dogs, and today we are drawing 2 more dogs that our favorite outlaw can take the time to sketch. First is the American Foxhound. Now, I learned another important lesson about drawing today, namely about the physical spacing between my reference picture and my drawing, because look at this. It's not right. He's supposed to look like this, but the sketch is a little too subtle for me to see the details from a distance, so moving forward, I will surely have the references next to my face rather than a few feet away on my computer. That said, I loved how the collie turned out. The fluffy textures are easy for me to replicate, and these big, dark lines for the darker, shadowed fur is a fun technique. It's the typical kind of rough sketch that perfectly captures the creatures Arthur studies. In my next attempt, I'll be sure to shorten the top line on the collie's back, but aside from that, I think I nailed this doggie's look. But how do you think I did? Subscribe for more, and I may even add a legendary animal to the journal. I'm grateful for how the series has grown, and I can't wait to show you more. For this long overdue entry in the Arthur Morgan Journal Journey, I've chosen to draw not 2 animals, but 2 people, Abigail and Jack Marston, and it's worth noting just how different it is to draw people. Not difficult, just different. Starting with Jack, I found his face to be a bit Bobby Hill reminiscent, so I started a do-over, then I maxed out the memory. Because it has taken a while since I've uploaded some worthwhile content, it seemed best for me to continue the journal with a representation of the reason why I've been delayed. My very own son was born not too long ago, thus it was the perfect time for me to recreate this story segment of Arthur's memoirs. Abigail's and Jack's portraits were excellently made, by Arthur, that is. They have faces in such subtle detail, and, especially in Abigail's case, in challenging angles to draw a person from. Getting this 3/4 profile was tricky to get perfect, but I think I did okay. After shading the shirt and writing the A, these portraits came together real nicely. I promise that next time there will be a legendary animal, so stay tuned and keep being sketchy.
Gentlemen, it is time to have some fun.
Today I'm finally fulfilling the request of City TEK with special thanks to 90-degree angles. I also wish to thank Gavinator07 for the encouragement. Both times. The legendary alligator speaks for itself. It's super detailed, but so simple. By the time I finished the gator, I found that the legendary drawings are actually pretty easy to make. But what makes them pop are the environments. After all, creatures outside of creation aren't creatures at all. Everyone needs a little shadow, a little patch of grass, or perhaps a shady past in order for them to be in the first place. Context is everything. Thus, filling out the background was fulfilling work. It's hard to capture the majesty and terror of the gator without also rendering the treacherous swamp. Together, they form one of Arthur's absolute best drawings, and it's a great reminder as to why I began this journal journey in the first place. Thank you for watching. Let me know where I should take the journal next.
Gatorland!
Alright, it's been a hot minute. Hopefully it hasn't been too long since last time.
It's been a month, please keep the series going.
Oh, wow. Time flies when you have a son. Hopefully nothing crazy and historical happened while I was away. Anyway, I've chosen the final hunting challenge in Red Dead 2 to balance out this spread. With the legendary alligator at the top, this legendary panther is more than perfect, as they are the 2 most dangerous hunts that Arthur can pursue. I think I finally found the rhythm to this series if my life trends continue. As a stay-at-home dad now, my infant son needs all of my daytime attention, which obviously I thought was going to hinder my video making. In the early mornings, however, I have time to myself, perhaps all the time I need daily before my boy wakes up. You know, life is kind of like the legendary panther. Before you can capture your life's greatest achievements, you must first demonstrate that you can be trusted with the smaller ones. I got 2 more spreads filmed and on the way, so stay tuned for more so I can fulfill my promise of filling out this journal. Time for a unique entry in the Drawing Like Arthur series. Unique because, well, I lost the footage. The first of these drawings is the man living in the east of the map who hates visitors, but you wouldn't exactly tell by my version.
Look how happy he looks.
Arthur says he
Discovered the world's angriest man. Relieved to realize it ain't me.
Go away!
While it's unmistakably the same subject, I'm relieved to remember that this is still practice. Thankfully, the so-called witch in the west of the map turned out a lot better, though it's easy to explain why. Mere shapes allow for far more leeway than specific faces. It's quite literally how we are drawn to people. I paired these isolated hermits together because in-game they each keep one half of a map they ripped in 2. Although, I hate bringing Arthur to the witch location because he more or less has to put down the dogs, which I don't think is in character, so I'll just let John do that. Anyhow, I promised that the next video was filmed and soon to be finished, and to give you a hint on the next subject, let's just say, I got a plan. We've seen some pretty cool sketches as of late. I wonder what's next.
Can you do a short explaining the book, and how you put the pages in? Oh, and go for the man with a plan himself, Dutch Tahiti van der Linde.
Absolutely. Let's do both, shall we? Although I must admit, I did not make the book. I found it at a local shop. There were a bunch of these paperback book covers stripped and remade into sketchbooks, and this Dakota book was the only one that was Western themed, so I took it as a sign. As for the portrait, these are the title pages for Chapter 3 in Morgan's journal, as well as the only time Arthur draws Dutch in the whole book. Yep, that's him right there.
A small one, perhaps?
But just in case we needed one more sketch, Arthur, I whipped out an index card to portray a proper portrait of Tahiti Man himself. Special thanks to a guy with games for the unique compliment on my talents. Look, everybody starts somewhere, and just like Arthur, I've been doing this for 20 years. Now, normally I wouldn't recommend using Dutch as a role model, but just keep making plans and doing them, and you might find yourself exactly where you need to be.
Tahiti.
Welcome back to Drawing Like Arthur. Which creature shall we cover next?
You could do a songbird.
I could, and I'll go a step further and add 2 more of my favorite birds from the game. The first of these 3 is the western tanager songbird, standing on a branch, gazing off to the right. Out of all the bird sketches, this one is my absolute favorite. I love the songbird's pose and detail. It reveals that Arthur truly has an eye for beauty and sought to capture it faithfully, and I am very happy with how my version turned out. Next is the cedar waxwing. This little guy is perfect for the top left corner of a spread, small enough to add some fun, but detailed enough to be more than an afterthought. This little bird was always a good entry in the journal, and again, I'm quite impressed with the results of mine. Finally, we have the Eurasian tree sparrow, sitting politely amongst her friends. Having made it this far, I've come to realize that I should draw birds more often. I was about to add the robin, but my son had woken up. So I'm leaving this blank for now, but when I return, this page will feature somebody Arthur loves. Last time I killed it with the birds, so let's ruin the other page with a human face.
Oh, Arthur.
Mary Linton. This is Arthur's former love, the one who sends letters and asks Arthur for family help. I chose her as the next subject to sketch because Arthur ends her first mission's journal entry with a sappy signature of A Heart M. And in my playthroughs, I like studying the songbird after this mission to make it look like Arthur was observing the prettier things in life, thus making the songbird sketch look like it's in love almost as much as Arthur is. Now, the reason I use the word ruin is because I'm not a fan of how often I had to erase to be satisfied with the face, and even then, it's not the most accurate to what Arthur made. So much precision is required with the eyes and mouth that the final result can end up looking like a different person if the artist isn't careful. But I did learn a good lesson, and I'm making a rule. From now on, I will only be making shorts based on requests. So, if you leave a comment on what you'd like for me to draw, unless I've already made it, it shall be made. Looking forward to the future of this series, and all of you have already given me so much hope for it. See you next time.
I just found this series and already love it. Maybe you could do a type of squirrel.
Sure thing, but let's do all of them, beginning with the American red squirrel. He stands up straight and seemingly holds a nut, in what's depicted as a shocked expression. Out of all the standard animals, this sketch is one of Arthur's best, and one of my favorites. It's got the detailed fur and the simplified line shading that makes this little creature super fun to recreate, and I believe this is one of my best works in this book. Fun fact about the gray squirrel, its drawing is almost identical with the red squirrel. It's nearly a mirror image, as the feet and hands are the same design. There is some variation in the face and tail shapes, so it does manage to be a distinct drawing in the end. Finally, the black squirrel takes the cake. Or all the nuts. He's rendered rather fuzzy with these powerful line strokes, and it's always a joy to shade this way, and I do believe I did them critters justice. I have about 11 suggestions already scheduled, so it looks like I'm going to be doing this for a long while. Alright, it's been a minute. Let's see what Arthur's got for us next.
Maybe some plants?
Sure, I mean, fine, we can do that. And I've always wanted to do that. Plants are one of my favorite things to do. The difference is that, I didn't have commentary for this written out, so this is live. This is just live. I love the milkweed and I love the yarrow, but I didn't want to just do half a page and then call it a short. So I'm fitting 5 drawings into one short, and it's hard to commentate on all that at once and be like, yes, indeed, this is the mint. That's what it looks like. I like it. And this is the carrot. It's really nice, and it is pretty nice, I got to admit. I do enjoy it. As for this last one, I did mess up on proportions a little bit. I did erase, and I didn't show that, but I also named this one incorrectly, but this is a flower found right by where the legendary bear is encountered, and I named it the snowberry instead of the violet snowdrop, but there you have it. What'd you think? See you next time. We're out here still drawing like Arthur Morgan. What do the people want to see next?
Giant frozen corpse. Whale bones.
Sounds good. I've chosen to include both suggestions because there are just so many, but luckily these two requests were next on my list, and they're both bones, so we'll have a nice little spread of two dead things. The first, of course, being found on top of the mountain north of Strawberry, right by the first T in West Elizabeth. There's a fun theory that this was Paul Bunyan, hence the presence of an ox's skull by the giant, and its past pioneers are all dead or dying. I liked this one, but the whale turned out even better. Not much else to say other than I'm happy there's still an expressed interest in these shorts. Just wish I was better at convincing the algorithm to keep them in people's feeds. I've seen better numbers from my latest standard upload, and it makes me wonder whether I should continue in the shorts format or switch to longer uploads for regular YouTube. I'm not exactly sure what's more engaging, the commentary or the time lapses. Either way, I'd like your feedback, as you'll be helping me shape the future of this series like you've already been doing. Hope to see you soon. Hope everybody had a good Christmas vacation. I certainly took the time with mine. Which is healthy, but it's time to get back to work.
I'd love to see an Albert Mason drawing. He's one of my favorite side missions.
Mine too. Mason is one of the best Red Dead strangers, as he's written realistically to be believable, but crazy enough to need the assistance and rescue of an actual outdoorsman.
They don't seem to be fans of modern technology.
His agenda is not that different from what Arthur ends up doing with his journal, capturing animals as they are, before man takes them all away. As for this little portrait, I found the original too wide for an upright depiction, and nearly all other Albert Mason entries would require turning my sketchbook sideways. So the bottom page lines up nicely. I chose the third mission where you herd horses to help him capture the majesty of the mares. Simple enough drawing, but it's wide. It's one of the few times where having these tall pages actually pays off. I may do a sequel with Mason's other entries, like the gator mission, which is huge, and the wolves, which would fit perfectly with the other wolf sketches. The next episode is already filmed, so the wait won't be long, and perhaps then I'll see about extending the runtime beyond 1 minute so I don't run out of time to fit the words in. As we continue drifting through the heavens, we may find the heavens drifting down to us.
The meteorite crash site would be cool. I only knew about the house one till I replayed RDR 2 years later.
That's right, there are multiple points of interest involving the meteor crash, the first of which is a trading post about which Arthur only describes as kind of interesting. Strange Man made a great video explaining the connection of this abandoned post with the meteorite, as it's all based on a real-life event that occurred in Siberia in 1908. Two brothers were camping out in a trading post when the impact occurred, and they became witnesses to the meteorite's effects, which matched the game. Hence the reason I included this as the first part of the trio that could have been better, but then again, so could have my blurry reference picture. My fault, but the other two show massive improvement. Up next, of course, is the house that got hit with a shard of space rock. It's one of Arthur's cleanest sketches, and I find the only aspect I missed on was the angle of the roof on the right. Aside from that, the details were fun to recreate, mostly because I was acting on
Faith.
faith that shading a general rock formation and lining a tiled roof instead of painstakingly matching all of it one-to-one would turn out just as good as the original. And it almost does.
Gentlemen, to this happy home.
But what's really going to knock over your trees is the main crash site, because this turned out amazing. First, I etched out some tree areas and made a center point representing the meteorite. Next, I used the rock as a guide for where the angle of each tree should pop out. Then, I went around the rock with the tree lines to outline the general shape of the sketch. I hadn't pre-planned on doing it this way, but it just worked. It also didn't hurt that I matched each individual tree, as opposed to a general idea of a bunch of trees. Once I added the details on the branches and in the crater, boom, here it is. Perhaps the most accurate point of interest I've ever recreated, and it's more evidence that I need to keep going with this series. Let me know if the 2-minute shorts are better than 1 minute. Doubling the runtime is surprisingly not that much extra work, so if long form is better, I can make the switch, no problem. Certainly gives me a moment to breathe. Yeah, no, looks great. Have a good day, everybody. Alright, for real this time. Ever since I drew the face of Mary Linton, the viewers have spoken.
I would like to see your attempt at Sadie. Honestly, keep drawing people.
Can do. We'll start with Sadie's portrait that Arthur makes after the first or second mission of Chapter 3, the one where she finally wears pants. It is Arthur's largest and most detailed gang member portrait. Usually, a notable stranger would take up so much space and attention on a page, so out of all the gang, Sadie Adler must have truly impressed Arthur. Personally, I have mixed feelings about Sadie as a character. She feels forced to be there and equally capable, if not better, than most men at gunslinging, but her gradual development and arc is too well written for me to hate.
Don't start.
Compared to last time, I was feeling a lot better about this face. Not exactly one-to-one, but she's not that far off from the source material. Except for the, raised eyebrow expression. Next up is the first gang member that Arthur sketches in the journal, Jenny Kirk, one of the only 2 gang members we don't get to see in person. Jenny was picked up by the gang around the same time as Micah, about 6 months before Chapter 1. There's not a lot Arthur writes about her other than being a sweet young girl. During the bear hunting mission, Hosea says that she had a spark and that Lenny was sweet on her. And it's interesting that she and Micah were both acquired at roughly the same time. After the Blackwater incident, Jenny died, but Micah lived. I believe there's a hidden meaning there, but I'll save that for a proper video. Overall, I could have done better, but it's still a good face. Finally, let's return to the bear hunting mission, where Arthur draws Hosea. The mission where this comes from is possibly my favorite out of them all. I love that it's just a weekend spent with Arthur's preferred father figure. Chat with Hosea, buy a horse, eat rabbit, and attempt to hunt the huge bear. It's just a good do-nothing mission that perfectly serves its purpose in the early game. My sketch turned out a bit elongated, and I noticed that that is one of my flaws as an artist, overemphasizing little details that bring the balance out of whack. Still, I think I did okay, and mistakes are never a reason to give up. In fact, they're the only reason to keep going. Therefore, I'll see you soon. Just to cross off the checklist, allow me to do something a little different.
Do a dragon. Do a sausage dog. Snom from Pokemon. The mummified Homotherium cub.
What?
My fault for not specifying that I'm only sketching the things which appear in the game. That said, this is a great opportunity to test my ability to render things like Arthur. In addition, I'll be adding to the journal the most fitting equivalent. In this case, I found that the alligator profile best fits the vibe of a dragon, and both drawings turned out pretty decent, if not a little chunky, but what better stand-in for a giant serpent than a giant lizard? Sausage Dog was tricky, not to sketch, but to equivocate. The sketch is pretty good, but nearly all species of dog in Red Dead 2 are in the same medium to large canine category, save one dog, the poodle. Poodles are found in the, richer parts of Saint Denis, usually behind a fence or walking with their owner. I considered drawing the mutt because it's a skinny-looking dog like the wiener one, but I really wanted to recreate that line work making up the fur. I think I made him slightly too long, but the results are spot on. Anyway, the Redtitian suggested a Pokemon I hadn't heard of before, but one that's incredibly easy to draw. And I don't mean that pejoratively. I mean, look at this thing. Though I haven't played Pokemon since Sapphire, if I wanted to play the same game again, I would simply reinstall it instead of buying it again each time. Moving on, I found Snom has the same presence as the snapping alligator turtle, given their spiky backs. Like the poodle, the snapping turtle's got that intense line shaping and shading, the kind that makes the critters pop from the page, and I thoroughly enjoy these results. Outlining the general shape helped with proportions, so I'll do my best to bring that with me with each piece moving forward. Finally, we have ourselves a frozen little big cat that I know nothing about except the request to render it. I think my line work with the fur is a bit too much, but there isn't much else to depict in this profile close-up. And while I could have added the panther or the legendary big cat, I stuck with the smallest big cat that Arthur sketches, the cougar, because at this point I was feeling pretty lazy. Still, the simpler drawings are often the trickiest to get just right. Discussing 8 sketches in 2 minutes was more work than I expected, but I have a feeling it was more engaging than some of my other entries. Let me know what you think, what works and what you'd like to see, and y'all come back now you hear.
You should do Horseshoe Overlook.
A great suggestion and a good challenge. Let us promptly commence.
Would love to see the chapter campsites that take up 2 pages.
Right, as it was the right choice to draw along my sketchbook's horizontal spread instead of a sideways depiction, given that the original spread is quite tall for a rectangular outline. Glad I did, because this was good practice. The tents and trees and horses have a dynamic relationship that was fun to recreate, even if my starting scale was a tad too large. There's also the second set of pages to consider. It's just as good, but I might have to save it for another day. Just one question. What exactly was Arthur doing for 2 entire weeks in between the first 2 chapters? At the end of chapter 1, it fast forwards to Arthur's journal entry written a few weeks later. I only ask because you can't spend half a day in camp before Grimshaw questions your manhood and sense of adventure. And if you go a full day doing nothing, Dutch will get on you for not putting any money in the box for ages. But what do you think Arthur was doing, and how did I do? Next time I'll be drawing Micah, who does not have an actual portrait, but I think you'll understand once we get there.
He's a rat.
Can you do some rat call Micah?
Would love to, but there's just one problem. Arthur never draws Micah, so I'll have to sketch the next best thing.
He's a rat.
The first of these rats is the black rat, the most common of its kind. The drawing is decently detailed and fun to recreate. With its action pose and tiny fingers, this one turned out pretty good. The other rat is the brown rat, which can be found in its natural habitat at Doyle's Tavern.
I killed worse.
Once again, Arthur employs those dark lines for the body, adding to the creature a fancy fur pattern. This one was trickier, but it looks alright. And that's all all the rats in the game, so what about the rest of the video?
Could you try drawing one of the icons from Swarm, please?
Good idea. Mike is also a snake, so let's sketch all of them. The rattlesnake has one of the most difficult drawings to get just right. It's not just the detail, it's the shape. This elongated body has a precise curve that's tough to match perfectly when not tracing over it. It's specifically here that I discovered some good advice for artists. With all these scales, lines, and colors, it can be hard to decide where to begin once the outline is made. But like with any project, the solution is simple. Start somewhere. From anywhere, you can see how the adjacent elements relate to one another, and in no time, you'll have yourself a merry little art piece, even when it's not how you envisioned. It seldom will be, and that's okay. Snakes, like wet noodles, are a matter of math, and the water snake is no exception. You will most likely study one of these by Clement's Point in Chapter 3. It's one of the simplest Arthur doodles, almost akin to John style.
What are you trying to say?
Thankfully, the Copperhead's got a little scene to it. This one's my favorite of the snake drawings, and I like to pair it with the black rat on the last page of Chapter 2 to unintentionally foreshadow the reason why the gang falls apart, as the journal entry shows Arthur questioning Dutch's wisdom, which has been further corrupted by Micah. Lastly, the guarma snake. Whether it's the fer-de-lance or rainbow boa or both, it's remarkable how it slithers out from the rest. It's the most realistic with the least amount of curve, and that can be tricky for any artist, no matter the skill. Still, I like the work I've done, and I apologize for the long delay. My employment status has thankfully changed, so now I'm free to focus on these videos full time. See you in the next one. God bless. To celebrate my latest upload, I've chosen to draw the other half of the Horseshoe Overlook murals, the first of which is shown here from 2 parts ago. This new upload is a video essay about Horseshoe Overlook as a chapter, and why it's wrong to not continue the story given the state of the gang. There's always something to be said about the relationship between wood in its natural state and wood in its artificial states, like wagons and wheels and trees, and it reminds me of my grandfather, John Sogi, who was a master carver, and he specialized in western scenes in particular, so there were a lot of carriages and horses created, some of which can be viewed in the Deadwood Museum in South Dakota. Sometimes I like to think that I am carrying on his legacy by drawing the Old West. While it's long gone, there are still good Western stories to tell and learn from, and my latest video seeks to do just that. There will be many, many more parts to that series and to this one, and this last week has been a blast of creativity and joy. It's just been nothing but motivation, and I can't wait to see where else we can go from here. So I hope to see you there with me at the end of the journey. Thank you very much. Hiatus, goodbye, Atus. We are back drawing like Arthur.
Would love to see more deer or horse breeds.
And good suggestion, because last time I only did 2. Today I'm doing 5. Starting with Arthur Morgan's first drawing of a studied animal, the Tennessee Walker. And it's done. Real easy sketch of Arthur's worst canonical spread in the game, but more on that another time. Moving on to the Ardennes. The Ardennes is a big fluffy-hoofed boy, the same breed as Bill Williamson's horse, Brown Jack.
He's a drunk, miserable bastard, but he loves that horse.
It's only right that they're so big, but I never vibe with the large horses, as I am always the Arabian enthusiast. But the bigger the drawing, the more detail I can match, and I am content with the result of these renditions thus far. Faithful, like a good horse. And another good horse to draw is the Suffolk Punch. This is one of the few animal drawings that features a dude alongside it, and I'm a big fan of little dudes, like in model planes or landscape paintings, because they always add a relationship that makes the main subject more meaningful. That's right, the world is more meaningful because you are in it. And even if you find these horses in the wild, Arthur will usually give them a saddle, like this Nakota. This drawing takes up a full page, and it is my favorite of all the horse sketches. For my playthroughs, I always make a point to have this drawing paired with the meditating monk on the mountain, as the final drawings that Arthur makes. I love the symbolism found with these two together, as if he has now gotten off his horse and has found enlightenment, redemption even, in the heavens. This, of course, only works for high honor Arthur, but it's difficult for me to do the low honor playthroughs. I've been convinced that Arthur hates being bad, and when presented with the desperate, he is quick to help them. It's kind of what Dutch taught him to do, and the 5th and final sketch today is the Hungarian half-breed. A good horse with good traits, this is the breed that Arthur rides when you hear,
May I stand unshaken?
and I only know that because I screwed up my last journal with this lonesome horse being interrupted by the Gatling. It's a nice horse with a nice setting, and I'm happy to have drawn more of the same animal. And be sure to leave your requests, as I will add them to the list and eventually get to them. Good day. Oh dear, is it that time already?
Would love to see more deer.
Okay, dear viewers, time to turn you into deer viewers, starting with the second animal Arthur studies, the white-tailed deer. Much like the Tennessee Walker breed of horse, the deer is a relatively simple sketch, with a little action line slithering through it. It's nice, I like it. Next is the white-tailed buck, a bit more detailed and always larger than I expect for some reason, but that makes a better picture. Getting the legs and antler proportions just right is always something to look out for, and I believe I did this justice, which ties into how imagery of the buck is used in the game. One thing I've wondered about the buck is why does this animal represent high honor? I can understand why the coyote is low honor, but even then I wonder why evil is not represented by a wolf. As for high honor, I suppose the buck is a noble creature that, as a non-predator, must use its natural weapons for protection. Outlaws are by necessity predators, so I suppose high honor Arthur is, mixing metaphors here, a sheep in wolf's clothing, unlike Dutch, who's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Or Micah, who's a wolf in wolf's clothing. Anyway, here's the legendary buck. He makes a great vest, one that'll make you feel like Sheriff Woody. Thanks for watching. Be sure to high honor unto others as you would like them to high honor unto you. Or in other words, go buck yourselves. Te quiero! The Campsite Chapter series is going well, but it's time to return to this series.
Maybe a grizzly bear. Back bear.
Liliana, you've got it, though I am a bit late. The black bear is cute and surprisingly not hostile, as its in-game behavior matches much of the videos I've seen of real life. It's a simple sketch with a little angry face, but a good one. And even though it's been a bit scrunched, I like how this one turned out. And in-game, I like pairing this bear with the black berry sketch to make somewhat of a pun if you can detect it. Now, the first grizzly bear can be found during the hunting mission with Charles, and I thought the prompt to ask about bear was permission to hunt it for food. It turns out you can't, but I can do decently well at capturing the feel of this fella. It's bigger but less complex than the other bear, so it came out a little faster, if also a little unright in the head. Finally, we have the legendary grizzly bear Bharati, which is one of the names of Indian goddess Saraswati, so I'm sort of at a loss for why a bear in North America is named such, but I do have an idea as to what the bear means regarding Arthur. While the etymology is in dispute, the name Arthur likely comes from other names meaning bear, like the Welsh Arth and the Latin Arcturus and Ursa. If so, then there's a sweet symbolism in Hosea asking Arthur to help him look for this giant animal. It's as if Hosea is the one who helped Arthur find himself. And that would make sense, as Hosea is the preferred father figure between his two mentors.
You're fine, old man.
This spread is marked at the halfway point of this sketchbook, and as of today, I have been making these journal sketch videos for exactly 1 year. It has flown by, and so much has happened, especially since I quit my job and immediately found success with the second chapter analysis. I'm beyond grateful for the love and the intrigue you've been giving me and this series, and I pray for another year of inspiring creativity and being inspired in the process. It's precisely why I do this. To be fulfilled is to fulfill, and I hope to be fulfilling. So as always, thanks for watching, and be sure to leave your requests for the next half of this journal journey, and hopefully I put it together a little faster.